Everyone. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox. Last week we had a great show, and as soon as the show was over, someone contacted me and she said, "My gosh, I just got through watching your show." She said, um, I hadn't watched it in a few weeks, and today you were really talking to me, and I wanted to know what resonated with her. I was talking about being unequally yoked. I was talking about relationships, and I was talking about, I shared how when I met my husband, he, actually, I was talking about my religious fiber, my experience back then. And when I met my husband, he was not really part of my circle, part of my religious circle. And the religious persuasion that he came from, that he grew up in, um, does not really blend with the evangelical doctrine that I observed. And, I was taught that if someone is not in your, believe the same way that you do, then you become unequally yoked. And I shared that I was happy that I did not follow that doctrine, because when my husband showed up, his character was just very attractive. His integrity, the qualities that he exhibited, Trump really superseded anything the doctrine said. And even though I was like really deep into religion, for some reason it just did not even dawn on me not to take a second look at this person that showed up in my life. And I was single, or I'd been divorced for a long time because I was married when I was in college. But all this time I had been single and really career driven. But this whole doctrine about being unequally yoked, that did not even, of course, I was aware that that was a no-no. And I, in reality, should not have pursued that relationship. But I disregarded it. And I saw the qualities that my husband had or has, and the way he treated me. Our values were aligned, right? Our values were aligned. My standards were in check, and he kind of like checked all the boxes. He observed my boundaries and all of that. So I just dated him. I totally disregarded that mandate, or I ignored that mandate, that rule, that regulation, that law, biblical law that says, do not be unequally yoked with an unbeliever. And we've been married for many years, not just married, but happily married for many years. So I was encouraging people to really check your intuition, so that you can know for yourself and not be guided blindly by external influences. Because when you do that, you really betray yourself. You really deny yourself of your birthright, the things that you are entitled to, even the thought of knowing that you are deserving of a good life. You are deserving of nice things. You are deserving of peace, happiness, contentment, safety. Those are your birthright, freedom, and all of that. But what happens is that, at least in the Christian religion, and when I share here, I talk about traditions and conventional norms and things that we are living today that no longer applies to us, including religious doctrine. And the more I talk about it, I realize that there are people that are really stifled, and they can't move forward simply because of their religious upbringing. And what happens is that, You see, religion, or at least I'm talking about the Christian faith, because that's the religion I am familiar with, because I followed, I grew up Catholic, uh, just in name, simply because uh, it was the only private school in my area back in my country. And so we were Catholics, my sister and I that went to the school. But, and then after I became evangelical, when I was an adult, and, someone came to me and I got born again and so forth. And then what happens is that you surrender yourself. You surrender yourself, your body, your heart, your mind, your soul. You surrender everything to an external force, to an external entity, to an external person. This person could have any name. In this case, it's Jesus, but it could be anyone. And all of that is doctrine that you have to consume by believing. You have to believe that in order to conduct your life that way, in order to live that way, in order to navigate through life that way. Not really, it tells you that, not to trust yourself, not to trust your mind, that your mind is deceitful. So you navigate life really just letting go of anything, your thoughts, your intuition, your instinct, the thing that you believe and the things that you see. Sometimes you get rid of logic, critical thinking skills, and all of that. And it's really, it tells you that your heart is deceptive, your thoughts are dangerous, and your desires are sinful, and your intuition is corrupt. Imagine that. That's the teaching of the doctrine. And what does it tell you? It tells you that you must die to yourself, you must deny yourself, surrender your will. You become, by doing that, you become born again through total submission. To become born again, to deny your birthright, of freedom, of safety, of love, of prospering, of all of that. To deny your birthright and to surrender your heart, your soul, your spirit, your body, all of it. Because again, it's like your desires are sinful, yet you are laden with desires for love, for attention, for affection. That is the way we are created. And when you deny that, what happens? Your whole central nervous system becomes suppressed because your natural desires are kicking up its heels, saying, I want love, I want affection, I want interaction with people. And then there are a whole set of rules that you have to follow. You can't do this, you can't do that. You've got to wait until you're married to have sex. Don't drink. Too much drink is not good. A whole list of rules that you follow. So you go through life really trying to navigate these things. I was in the midst of a meeting recently, and I was new in this circle. And it was very interesting and very pleasant, great energy amongst everyone that was present. So in the middle of the meeting, the facilitator said, he wanted to get to know us. He wanted to get to, for each one to kind of share something about themselves, so that we would get to know each other a little bit just before we started the meeting and so forth. So when it was my turn, I briefly described my background, and then I talk about my show. And I also shared that I am a life coach. But when I talked about my show, I said, I shared that I challenge people and lead them into a path of, into a journey of self-discovery. And I talked about how, because if you don't do that, then you're navigating through life through borrowed beliefs, and in in most cases, these are limiting belief system. And I said, when you get to know yourself and you 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 learn to know you and you become familiar with you and you start enjoying who you are and following your intuition and learning your own voice and making decisions and allowing yourself to think critically, to analyze and assess every situation and be able to analyze it and make a decision for your life. I also share that when you learn to trust yourself, you grow in confidence, because confidence is a skill. You can't teach someone confidence. That is a skill. And when you learn all of that, then life becomes, you start really aligning with the things that are meant for you. Doors start opening naturally. You don't have to go kicking down any doors or trying to push situations through, force your way through, grind, hustle, and all of that. You don't have to do any of that, simply because you're walking in the knowledge, the understanding of who you are. And I share the importance of that. And I said, a lot of people don't really know that. We go through life and we have this personality, we have this identity that was imposed upon us, and we simply don't know who we are. So we go through life performing for the crowd and being concerned about what will people think, what would people say. I know people that are becoming awakened into the knowledge of who they are, and they are literally afraid of friends, family members, people that know them. They are afraid to come out. It's almost like, they are afraid to come out in the open and stand on their feet, acknowledging who they are and that they have come to this truth. I know, because for me, it wasn't fair. There was a lot of apprehension. And what I had to do was to go and make sure that the things that I was learning about myself and the truth that I was learning about the religious doctrine, I had to do my research to make sure that I was deconstructing, dismantling, deprogramming my mind from what was taught to what I know. And until I came to that place where I knew, it's like, if you talk to me about hell, you cannot talk to me about hell, because that's not for me. Hell doesn't exist. If you talk to me about heaven, that's not something that I believe in. All those beliefs are for people that believe in that doctrine. And I no longer believe in that doctrine. So it doesn't apply to me. So there is no fear, but I had to be fully persuaded. I had to know for me. I had to know for myself that that I was on the right path with my truth before I came out. And when I came out, then, I had the confidence and I had the assertiveness that I was on the right path. So there's no fear. But there are people right now that are digging, they're searching, they're checking, double checking, and all of that, analyzing, assessing, and so forth. They're being awakened, but they're still afraid. There's that grip of, what would my family say? What would people say? What would they think about me? And they're afraid to come out. So they're still living a double life, or living a life of make believe. And it's nothing wrong with you not believing, because before people change their beliefs all the time. I remember our pastors, when I was at church, our pastors came from a certain religious group that required, the bun in the hair, and you can't cut your hair, and you wear long skirts and all that. And they were in that faction for a long time. And they said they didn't say they had an awakening. They just said that they left that faction. They left that religious persuasion. and they are now evangelical. They are now in the evangelical circle. The born again, the water baptism, speaking in tongues, healing, and so forth. Or preaching of healing, because there's really no spirit, no healing. So even pastors go through that. But to say that you have renounced the doctrine, it's a hard thing. It's a tough thing. But the thing is that you have to know, you have to understand, you have to know for you. You have to know for yourself. So anyway, I shared about that. I didn't get into any kind of religious rhetoric at all. I was just talking about getting to know who you are, trusting yourself, and when you know who you are and you go back to that place to discover your identity or to remember who you are, then you can live a life of authenticity, authentically and organically. You no longer have to perform to please someone, or because you need their permission, you need their affirmation, you need their consent so that you can be who you are. You don't have to hide anymore. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to perform when you know who you are, because you can stand on your own ground and you can answer whatever question or refuse to answer any questions. And there are certain things that I don't know. I was talking with someone the other day, and I don't know how it came up, because people, I guess the way I talk, sometimes people question, is like, wait a minute, you are just talking as if you're self-governed or sovereign. And yes, that is my mindset, because things work out for me that way, with that mindset, that I am a magnificent creative being, and so are you, because that is so embedded in my mind. I don't go externally looking for help. No, I go on the inside, and I have learned to allow myself to be calm and to be collected. And when I have to think of things, then I am able to do that. And I'm okay with that. I don't, there's no guilt, no shame, no judgment, none of that. But it takes understanding. All you're getting, get understanding. So they asked me about, we were talking about something, and they asked me about heaven and so forth. And they were, and because I know, because I came from that doctrinal persuasion, the Christian doctrine, I know the Bible. I've read it many times, and this person didn't know anything at all. And so I asked them questions, and they just said, well, I don't know anything about that. And I asked a whole, number of questions, and all they could say is, I don't know about that. And I'm saying, but wait a minute, you subscribe to this doctrine, and you follow it based on what? And they simply could not explain. They just said, well, because when you die, you have to go to heaven. You want to go to heaven, and all of that, and that's really all they knew. And it was kind of sad, because when I was when I was religious, I knew why I believed what I believed, and that was because that's what I was taught. And at the same time, I had farmed out my thinking ability, my critical thinking skills, my decision-making ability. I had farmed it out. I had given it out, because I became of the belief that, my heart is deceptive, my thoughts are dangerous, my desires are sinful, and my intuition was corrupt. So I had to get rid of all that when I, flip the other side and start checking. But anyway, going back to the meeting with the folks that we were sharing of each other's background and so forth. So when it came to this other person said they deflected from everything. They said, I am just this, and they had like a two-liner, because what they were referencing is that everything that I am, everything that I think, everything that I do is in Christ, of Christ, and through Christ, period. And that obviously conflicted with what I said. Now, when I shared, my position was not to convince anyone or to motivate or to inspire. No, no, no. I just shared what my thoughts are and what my show is all about and so forth. But this person kind of took to it and said that, well, I don't, and then they said, well, your show is not for anyone. And I was so glad that they shared. And I said, yeah, I hear you totally. It's not for anyone. It's for people that are thinkers. It's for people that are questioning things. It's for people that have come to a place where they're questioning their deep, belief system themselves and all the things, questioning tradition. And then another person in the group said, and a lot of those things no longer applies to us today. And I said, yes. So, and then another person says, and when they were giving their own background and so forth, and they said, and I learned this from her, meaning from me, and I learned this from me, and they were saying something, and I learned this from her, and I found it quite interesting because one of the people that was there, I know that person, and but you don't, I don't know specifically what they meant, because when I share from my heart and I share my experience. And when I share with you, it's not telling you what to do. It's telling you that within you have what it takes. You have the chip that will tell you what you need to do, who you are. You have that chip. You just have to be willing to come aside and discover it. You have to be willing to self-reflect. You have to be willing to search, and you have to be willing to ask questions. Why do I believe what? Because this person that was two-liner person, she didn't say a lot about herself, and as was portrayed is that her life is just a wreck with one problem after another, one problem, because once she started to open, that's what was shared, just a lot of problems. And it doesn't really have to be that way, but sometimes when you allow yourself to I say farm out, and it's really, farm out, and it's really surrender your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, your belief, the things that when you allow yourself to surrender that, to just surrender and give it, become dependent, totally trusting, totally submitting to an idea, to a thought, to a belief that doesn't hold any sort of empirical proof, evidence, but you submit and you surrender. Well, if something keeps not, and then the tendency is, well, not the tendency. What was said is that, and I see now why this happened, why this bad thing was allowed to happen, so that I could learn this lesson, so that my eyes would be open in this area. Well, if I had something to teach my child, I'm not going to subject him to something that hurts or burn or something that's going to be bad for them. No, you have other ways of teaching your kids. And it was quite interesting because I am so aware that when I come on here, that the things that I share are very polemic. They are just polemic, controversial. People don't want to hear about being sovereign, self-governed, independent, free thinker, open-minded, expansive thinking, navigating through life on your own, taking responsibility, and creating, manifesting, and living a life. As a matter of fact, I said, because my idea of the purpose of life is pleasure. And I said, and you can define that however however you see fit. Because if you choose the opposite, then it would be pain and suffering and so forth. I kind of share that. And I really believe that the purpose of life is pleasure in whatever it is that you do. Whatever it is that you do, the purpose of life is pleasure. Any act of kindness that you do, that you bring to someone, gives you pleasure. At least it does. At least it does me. When I go to a restaurant and I can give my husband calls it the unexpected delight, when I can surprise the server with a tip that they did not expect, with a sort of tip that would just blow them away. It gives me pleasure to do that, not only for the server, but just the thought that I'm able to do that. That gives me great pleasure, gratitude, appreciation for life, that I'm able to do that. So it's two-way. The server is happy and I'm happy because I don't take it for granted. I live a life that is very appreciative of the things that I am able to do. So when I say the purpose of life is pleasure, that's exactly what I mean. Now, do things happen that are unfortunate and so forth? Of course, things happen. But I cannot control the whole world. I can only, the areas that I can help or the areas that I can control, that's the thing that I'm going to focus on. If I can, get in there and put my hands in there, then it's not where I'm going to put my focus. If I have to support, send help, GoFundMe, and things of that nature, yes, I'm going to do that. Why? It brings me pleasure to be able to contribute to the lives of others. But I can't solve everybody's problem. But at the same time, I will not deprive myself, and you shouldn't either, deprive yourself of living a full life. Regardless of where you are, what your situation is, you should not deprive yourself of living a full life. A life of fulfillment and content, happy and peaceful. The other day, my husband and I, we were doing this kind of lately, that we are enjoying a whole lot. We just relax, lay in bed and hold hands, and we have these deep conversations. Because life today, you can talk about so many things. During the day, we share a lot of information. Oh, did you know so and so? And and that's kind of fun. But when we're together, then it's good to dig deep to see where are you at? What are your thoughts on this? What are you thinking about this? What do you see about this, and so forth? And this way you get to know each other better. And it's just a moment of calm, of peace. And because what we are learning is that you cannot redeem time. Time has become like a currency for us again, and that is our evolution. And that's why I share with you, my friend, you must do what works for you, but you have to discover what works for you. And when you discover it, the more you dig in and the more you start exercising your birthright, because that's what we do. Seize it, your birthright, get it back. the more you start standing in your fullness, knowing that not only these things are your birthright, but you are deserving. You deserve to have a good life. No one should have to tell you that. I told you, my dad told me that. And, I was a young woman. I was a young girl, actually. And he said, you deserve a good life. You deserve to have a good life. You deserve the best in life. My dad was kind of that way. That's the way he showed his love to us, by giving us the things that we wanted. Forget the things that we needed. That was just there. But the things that we wanted, he took pleasure in that. He delighted in giving us the things that we wanted. And he was unapologetic. Well, I mean, there's no one to apologize to. He just did. That was his way of showing his love. And I liked it because, I got everything that I wanted. But just the thought of knowing that you deserve a good life, that you deserve, that it is your birthright. Can you imagine having a baby and bringing this baby into the world and thinking they don't deserve to have a good life? Our entire action, behavior before a baby is born, what do? You paint. Well, first of all, you get the room ready and you paint it yellow or blue or pink or lavender, whatever. You paint it, and then you get all the toys, and you get the some people create a mural on the wall with caricatures and so forth. And I'm talking from family experience that I've seen my nieces do. And then you get the best crib. Some buy a crib where it can turn into a bed and take them into their adult years, which is like a really good wood, quality made bed. That's what they did. They just bought beds that were great cribs, but then you could, once they reach a certain age, you could break it down and create a bed, a strong bed, because it was good wood and so forth. So my point is, they made a decision that their kid, their child, their baby was worthy of these nice things. They bought nice toys and hanging merry-go-round over the crib, and nice linen for the mattress. And not only that, but what do you call it? Those bumpers, those bumper guards. They just, and it's interesting because when you have two kids, usually like you break it down to the other kid, but in this case, they wanted each kid to have their own things, their own bumpers, their own things, and which I find quite interesting. They wanted them to have the best. So if here they are, mom and dad, and they are they're having a baby, and in their minds they want to have the best. They want to have the best of everything. And even in the room, they have a rocking chair where they could, and then the what do you call it, the diaper change set, and then a bassinet. The amount of money people or parents spend for a child they're going to receive, it's incredible. And they don't care. Why? Because they believe, they know, in fact, they are fully convinced they would go without to make sure that baby's room is well outfitted. As a matter of fact, I remember we went to this baby shower, and then they have a baby shower and everybody brings stuff, and then they had the baby's name written on the wall in beautiful, I guess this particular person, the baby's room was like lavender, and they wrote the name of the baby on the baby was not even born yet. So just imagine, you do all that for a child that's being born, And then now you grow up and you were that child because your parents did that for you. And now you grow up and you have surrendered your birthright to someone else. Come on. And think that you are not deserving. And this person yesterday said, I only do, what I am told. I only do this, I only do that. If I don't feel if this is not the will of of Christ, I don't do this, I don't do that. And it was just, this person was totally detached, total surrender, total submission to the belief system that they were navigating through life under. And the sad thing about this is that, you can have a belief system, but like I always say, it has to work. Make sure it's working for you. Make sure that it's working for the life that you desire to have. I always say you can create your own lifestyle. Make sure whatever it is you believe in. I'm not saying, you can do whatever works for you. If it works for you to stay submitted and surrendered to an external force, then if it's working for you, that's fine. If it brings you peace, happiness, joy, contentment, prosperity, and the freedom to be yourself, then that's fine. But if there's one area of, I'm not going to do this because of fear, then you're not being authentic. You're not being your true, authentic self. You're not living organically. You are in a performative mode. And it's like this person that called me after the show last week and said that I was talking to them because, you know what she said? I have given up so many opportunities. This person is a widow, but they're young. They're young and they're a professional person. They're a psychologist, travel all over the world, and she's independent, beautiful woman, smart, independent. And she said, I've given up some opportunities because of that whole mindset of being unequally yoked with someone. Now, if someone doesn't line up with my values, then that I don't even call it unequally yoked. You just don't align with the values that I have. Not a belief system, but the values that I have. Kind, compassionate, and so forth. You've got to line up. Respect. Those are values that, for me, they're non-negotiable. You've got, respect for me is the pinnacle. It's on top of it. Even between my husband and I, we have a lot of fun, but there's an element of respect, deep respect. I have never ever used an ill word toward my husband, ever, or vice versa. Like call him and out of his name. We just don't do that. And it's not because we're so perfect. No, it's just simply because we have placed respect at the pinnacle of our relationship, more so than love. Because when you respect someone, it's because you love them. But you can say, I love you, I love you, I love you. How many people love each other, but they don't respect each other? And that's it. So again, if someone is outside of my values, then that's a non-negotiable. That's a red flag and a non-negotiable. But, as far as belief system and doctrine and all that, I threw that out. When I met my husband, I said no. And this person is saying she's given up so many opportunities of suitors, men, I guess that she could have dated, but simply because they weren't of her circle, her persuasion, religious persuasion. She just red flagged it and non-negotiable, made it a non-negotiable, and so forth. And now I did not even spend time like saying, no, you got to do this. No. You have got to know for yourself. Because look, if that works for you, then you go on with that. If it works for you, if you say, no, I'm going to stick to my beliefs and I'm going to follow this and I'm going to follow that, then you do that. When I say if it works for you, in other words, if that's the path that you choose, then that's okay for you. Then that is okay for you. Just like the things that I discover for me, they work for me. They work for me. I've gotten to a place where I am not afraid to make a change, to create situations, to move on. I look back in my life and I think about so many situations where I had, they were good situations, good situations, good people, good surroundings, good opportunities, and so forth. But if I come to know that it's no longer working for me, if I come to know that it doesn't align with my core, my dreams, goals, where I'm going in life or where I want to be, then I move on unapologetically. It's not a matter of good or bad, right or wrong. It's simply when you know who you are and when you are working life for your good, when you acknowledge the good things that are within you, then life begins to unfold, or just continues to unfold in such a way where you will, where you will reap the benefits of prosperity, of freedom, of truth more than anything else. Because, when you know the truth, that is what sets you free. The truth that you know. The truth that you know is the truth that sets you free. That's why this whole thing about dismantling belief system and traditional norms and conventional practices, once you realize it's not working for you anymore, my friend, then let it go. And the biggest hindrance that people have is, what would people think? What would people say of them? Yes, you may lose relationships, but that's life. If the foundation of your relationship was rooted in the belief system that you have, then you can expect it to dissolve if you no longer believe that way. And see, I'm okay with that. But if the relationship is based on mutual respect, mutual sharing, wanting the best for each other, your success, your growth, your development, your evolution, I desire that for you, whatever it is that you want. There's no competition. There is no no competition or trying to be whatever, one up on the other. No, because why? Because what you want is totally different from the things that I want. So I can support you in your endeavor. Why? Because I'm already on track for my own. I am where I am. I am working life the way that I want to work life, and it's working for me. Jealousy, envy, and all of that, all of those dramatical, all of those emotions, first of all, it's a waste of time. But that's usually is for people that don't know who they are and have no idea where they're going. They have no idea that you are a magnificent creative being and that the things that you desire, They are your birthright. But if you have farmed out, if you have uh, submitted and if you have submitted and surrendered your heart, your soul, your body, your feelings, if you have surrendered that to an external force, then of course you have nothing to work with. You have nothing to work with. Why? Because you are waiting for things to happen instead of making things happen. That word surrender, it's big, to submit and to surrender. And then you submit your life, and you surrender who you are. You surrender yourself. When we question things, then we're called rebellious. And when I talk about individuality and being independent and so forth, people attribute that to pride. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Why? Because it works for me. And when something is accomplished, yeah, it's the effort, not like physical effort, and that too, but it's the effort that I put into it. The mindset, the focus, the connections, and the alignment that I put into it. And I say that unapologetically. I'm not, it's not brag or pride. No, no, no. When you know who you are, that is the language you speak. And only other people that understand that, those of you that understand that, will know the truth of that. You can believe whatever you want to believe. That is free. But as I say, my friend, it must work. It has to work. Whatever it is, if you believe that, if you have some kind of physical situation, you believe you're going to be here, it has to work. Otherwise, you go through life with the ailment for years. My focus, my mind, when I think of myself and my body and my health and all that is, I stay so focused. The body repairs itself. The body heals itself. The body regenerates. And that's why, when I don't say, the things that you say is like talking to your cells, your cells. And I'm not going to say anything bad about my cells. And I'm not going to, badmouth my cells and say, my cells are this and my hormones are this and my cholesterol is this. I don't badmouth my cells. No. Because every time you open your mouth and say something, it is information that you are transmitting to your cells. You are telling your cells, you are giving it information. And then it goes to work based on the I am that you have said. When you say I am this, or my cholesterol is this, or my, I am that. When you give yourself the I am, then the cells are going to perform, because your cells do not discriminate. Your cells perform based on the instructions, the information they hear coming from you. I'm going to leave you with that. Yes, I have another lunch date today, or, brunch, not brunch, but lunch, dinner, and so forth. So that's just the way life is. I'm going to leave you with that until next week. We meet here every Thursday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, every Thursday. And if you can't join me on a Thursday afternoon, then you see the icons down here, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. You can pick up the feed 24/7 and enjoy the show. Now, if you have something to share with me, if you want to drop me a note or get in touch with me, you can drop me a note at info@thecynthialinoxshow.com, and I will respond to you. Or if you want me to share something in particular, I will also take a look at that and we can share it with others, because everybody, we're navigating at different pace. We're navigating at different pace and different experiences. We are evolving in different ways. And what works for me may not work for you, but then you have your own thing. And as I said, when I share with you, it's not telling you what to do, is reminding you that you have the chip that belongs to you. It is unique, and therein lies your identity, who you are, your personality, the qualities and characteristics that makes you uniquely you. In the meantime, I'm going to say ta-ta, and I will see you next week, same time, same place. Have a fantastic weekend. This is a long weekend for us here in the United States. So whatever you do, be safe. I know a lot of people, they go to the lake and pools and so forth. So just be safe, but have a fantastic weekend. We have plans. I love it when my husband says something like, honey, make reservations for so and so. So we're going to have a fantastic weekend. Ciao, my friend. See you next week.